been suicidal. In addition, she has supported many families where a person has committed suicide or has been suicidal. So she has vast experience in this field. She believes that she has a moral obligation to the community. Ms. Hossein will be doing a general introduction into the topic of suicide. I would like to hand over to you, Ms. Hossein.
Good afternoon, everybody. Suicide. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Suicide. The word caught your attention, didn't it? The truth is, suicide catches everyone's attention. It's the actions that lead up to suicide that go unnoticed. The truth is, suicide catches everyone's attention. Definition of suicide, the act of intentionally causing one's own death. Feelings of anger and resentment combined with exaggerated guilt can lead to impulsive self-destructive acts. Suicidal ideation is a thought process. Suicidal behavior includes suicidal threats, suicide attempts, completed suicide. My head is a very dark place. Suicide, facts and figures. Suicide is the second leading cause of death amongst the age groups of 15 and 29-year-olds. Over 800,000 people die by suicide every year, one death every 40 seconds. High-income countries have shown 75% of suicidal occurring in low and middle income countries. There are more deaths from suicide than from war and homicide together, showing a percentage of 57%. Pesticides, hanging, and firearms are the most common methods used globally. Suicides are preventable. Key is a comprehensive multi-sectoral approach, media, government, the civil society. What you need to know, suicide is a major public health concern. South African ratio of non-fatal to fatal suicidal behaviors, 20:1 or higher. Inaccurate statistics. That is almost one completed suicide every hour and 20 attempts every hour. Doesn't mean it isn't happy. Distress, psychological pain, suicide, not attraction of death. At risk person, self-harm happens more often in people who have family members who have self-harmed, lived through negative or very difficult experiences like abuse or trauma, have or have had a mental health problem, few supports or healthy coping skills. Stressful events or situations, the vulnerable people experiences internal or external stresses. Common internal stresses, handling feelings, a lack of feelings, feeling numb or empty, emotional overload, too many distressing feelings like anger, anxiety, depression, worthlessness, despair. Common external stresses, negative school experiences with peers, teachers, schoolwork, bullying, relationships, problems with dating partners, friends, parents, brothers and sisters, problems at home, dealing with divorce, separation, transitions. Coping can be healthy thoughts. I can't believe that she said that. Nobody loves me, nobody cares. I can't deal with this. Healthy thoughts. I don't like what she said. I'm going to take a break so I can calm down and then I'll deal with it. I'm not going to let this bother me. Unhealthy coping, like self-harm. Youth use self-harm because they feel numb, they feel overwhelmed, they have learned this from others or through experience. haven't yet learned healthier ways to cope. Healthier coping behavior, like talk to a supportive adult, calling a friend for support, going to workout, listening to music, writing in a journal, problem solving. These are just some of the examples. On the positive side, at least you are doing something to manage your feelings and are trying to cope. You can learn new ways to handle things. Keep reading. Methods. Hanging most frequent. Shooting, poisoning, gassing, burning, sharp objects, electrocution, drowning, asphyxia, false penetration, jumping in front of moving vehicles, trains, etc. These are some of the methods that people commit suicide. Choice of method, accessibility, knowledge or lack thereof, experience and familiarity, meaning symbol and cultural influence. Suicidal patients, state of mind and level of intent. Other considerations, history of suicidal behavior in family, substance abuse and other psychological disorders in family, exposure to family violence and child abuse. Suicidal risk assessment. Sex. Males kill themselves 4 times more often than females. Age. Certain age groups are more at risk. In South Africa, 15 to 34 years old. Depression. Depressed persons significantly more at risk. Previous attempt, more likely to attempt in the future. Ethanol, alcohol abuse, very often implicated in suicide. Rational thought, more prone to suicide if psychotic. Social network, less social support, greater risk. Organized plan, greater risk if plans are organized. No support, greater risk of suicide if there is no support. Sickness, a chronic physical sickness makes one more prone to suicide. Talking, reading, or writing about death or suicide, talking about feeling worthless or hopeless, saying things like, I'm going to kill myself, I wish I were dead, or I shouldn't have been born, visiting or calling people to say goodbye, giving things away or returning borrowed items, organizing or cleaning one's bedroom for the last time, self-destructive behavior like self-cutting or other risk-taking behavior like violence or bullying, severe drop in schoolwork or performance, being obsessed with death, violence, guns or knives, previous suicidal thoughts or suicidal attempts. Know the signs, find the words, reach out. Excuse me. At what point of the treatment phases below would a patient be at most risk of committing suicide? The different phases are normality, depression, remission, and recovery. Okay. The myths about suicide. Next slide. No one can stop someone who is determined to commit suicide. If someone tries to commit suicide, he or she is crazy. To suicide attempts. Those who talk about suicide rarely actually commit it. Someone with a history of a failed suicide attempt was just being manipulative. Those who improve after suicidal crisis are not at risk for another attempt with suicide. Thoughts of suicide will always be present. These are some of the myths and are not true. Everyone can help prevent suicide by knowing the myths and facts, identify learners with risk factors for suicide, learning the warning signs of a possible suicide, intervening early enough if you think there is a suspicion of suicide, following through to make sure that children with suicidal ideas, intentions, or plans have received all the help they need or can get. excuse me, management of suicidal behavior, stage 1, assessment of the patient, recognition of significant life events, consideration of special problems, specific problem-oriented treatment, additional components of treatment, prevention, and control. How can you help a suicidal person? Ask about suicide. Are you thinking of suicide? I'm worried about you. I need to know if you are thinking about suicide. Sometimes people who say things like that are thinking of suicide. Are you thinking of suicide? Have you been contemplating suicide? Be calm and matter of fact. Be aware of your tone of voice. Be quiet and listen. Don't advise, lecture, or interrogate or judge. Safe plan. How long can you keep yourself safe? Who can help? Some of the awareness and support groups are teenage suicidal prevention programs, bipolar awareness, substance abuse awareness, mental health awareness, panic awareness days, World Suicidal Prevention Day, World Mental Health Day. These are some of the awareness foundations and movements to create awareness and just help people reach out. There's the different support groups, mental health support group, bipolar, suicidal support group meetings, contact numbers, contact people, etc. That people can reach out to. Lifeline, crisis line. Yeah, these are all the support groups. Into the Light, Walking in Memory. These are some of the events that took place, creating awareness, walks in honor of suicide. What does a suicidal person look like? Actually, it's very difficult to identify what a suicide person looks like. These are some of the people. So your famous Marilyn Monroe, one of them who suffered depression for a very long time and committed suicide. This is a walk that was conducted by Lifeliners. 150 people walked in honor of suicide. World Suicide Prevention Day in 2016. We have a story of Paula's. My name is Paula, and I'm supported by my family and friends to remember that my youngest daughter only lived until 14 years, 2 months, and 16 days. My daughter, Amy Joanna, was one of my 3 children, an unexpected blessing to the family. As a child, she was a happy-go-lucky child who was happy to mismatch her clothes and to try to never wear shoes. She would skip around the yard singing as she went along. My 3 children were companions to each other. She was an above-average student who excelled in the classroom and on the hockey field. In the 4 months of her high school career, she was playing hockey for the school second team with players 2 to 3 years older than herself. Her love of the Lord and listening to music was her way of chilling. As a 14-year-old first-year high school student, peer pressure, competitive sports, false friends, and some of the things a year older than herself. Her love of the Lord and listening to music was her way of chilling. As a 14-year-old first playing hockey for the school second team with players 2 to 3 years older than her, mutilated her body to hide emotional torment. 2 to 3 years older than her, mutilated her body to hide emotion, devastation, disbelief. inconsolable crying. At her funeral, I could see by those present that they I could see by those present that they see her friends all grown up.
Recording in
Fathers,
progress.
mothers, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, partners, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, their fathers, mothers, grandchildren, grandparents, sisters, uncles, aunts, nephews, and I missed and loved every single day. Great pain. Choose your words carefully, and please don't judge what you cannot possibly understand. Pain. Choose your words carefully, not and please. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak, not and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down. Courage is what it takes and listen. Winston Churchill. Also what it takes to sit down and listen. Down and listen.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hussein. That was very informative and in-depth. I like the final part where you say we have to take suicide seriously. I like the final part where you say we have to consider that these people are one of our own. Thank you so much. I would like to further proceed and introduce our second speaker, which is Dr. Vadwa. Dr. Lasima Vadwa is a clinical psychologist and introduce our lecturer in Department of Behavioral Medicine, is a clinical College of Health Sciences, a lecturer in Department of KwaZulu-Natal. She's also a head of psychology department at King Edward Hospital in Durban, where she's a lecturer in Department of Clinical Work. She's also a head of clinical psychology and master students in clinical psychology and other health professionals, including psychiatrists in clinical psychology was and other health professionals and health outcome in undergraduate medicine students. Other areas of research interest are suicidal behavior, trauma, cultural and traditional healing cultural and traditional healing systems, and their role in national health insurance. She has presented research international conferences and has published in scientific peer-reviewed journals and in textbooks. Dr. Vadwa was awarded an NIH postdoctoral fellowship at the Jeffern School of Medicine at University of California, Los Angeles. She was also awarded a Fulbright visiting scholarship at John Jay College of Criminal Justice at the City University of New York, where she worked in the area of forensic psychology. Dr. Vadwa will be talking to us about suicidal behavior in South Africa. I would like to hand over to you, Dr. Vadwa. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, can we hear? Hello?
Yes, we are with you, Dr. Vadwa.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I want to just thank the university for this opportunity, and especially this extremely important topic, because we see and hear about it every day. Anecdotally, I live in the North Beach area, and since COVID started, there have been at least about 6 people who've thrown themselves off the high-rise buildings there, which is very, very sad indeed. But Ms. Asya Hussein has actually spoken about a lot of the areas that I wanted to talk about. But my talk, I'm going to start off Ms. Asya Hussein has actually spoken about in South Africa, risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management and some conclusions. My talk, I'm going to start off Ms. Asya Hussein is actually talk about suicidal behavior in South Africa, risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management and some conclusions. My talk, I'm going to start off Ms. Asya Hussein is actually talk about suicidal behavior in South Africa, risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually in just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. And some conclusions. I want to start off by saying that actually just talk about a lot of suicidal behaviors in South Africa as risk factors for adults and children, as well as then the management. Full extent of the problem, because there's a lack of reliable mortuary surveillance systems. There's a lack of national suicidal behavior of death. People hide it, doctors hide it due to fear of stigma for deceased and survivors. There's lots of religious and social taboos, cultural taboos regarding suicide. And there's also a shortage of health professionals, mental health professionals. We don't have enough. Just looking at our context in KZN, of the 9 provinces in South Africa, KZN has the highest risk for mental illness, the highest proportion of people living below the poverty line, the highest poverty gap, the 3rd highest unemployment rate, has the highest prevalence rates of HIV and AIDS in South Africa, has the 2nd highest murder rate, and of the 6 major cities, Durban also has the highest suicide rate for males. This research was done in 2010, nothing new I've discovered since then. So I imagine the situation would be even worse now, especially with COVID and its economic impacts and social impacts. So that's the kind of thing that we're working with here in KZN and in Durban in particular. So as I said, it's a public health problem. And to prevent it and manage it, we must understand the risks and protective factors at an individual level, at a family level, at a social cultural level, as well as the economic level. And it's necessary to formulate preventive programs and early recognition of suicide and suicidal behaviors as part of holistic health. The risk factors for adults, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a diagnosis of mood disorder, especially depression, anxiety, substance abuse, schizophrenia, and also substance-induced psychosis. So when people take substances, they become psychotic, they're more likely to engage in suicidality. Then there's physical sexual abuse and parental divorce, the physical illnesses, family history of mental illness and suicide. And some research I've done find that pregnancy, generally pregnancy has been found to be protective of suicide attempts, but not when it's unwanted or causes conflict between partners or with significant others, denial of paternity, etc., or abandonment by the partner. So those also present high risk for young women in particular. Then there's also post-traumatic stress disorder, specifically hyperarousal and intrusive thoughts. So if you keep on having, if you've been exposed to some kind of trauma and you have palpitations, the symptoms of anxiety, and you have constant intrusive thoughts, that's associated with suicidal ideation, especially in high-risk groups such as the police. And then we have all these social and contextual factors such as unemployment, financial problems, and acute perceived stress. The other thing I want to talk about among children is the fact that so many young children are committing suicide. And then risk factors here, we're looking at family conflict as a stressor, interpersonal conflict with others, child abuse, and school-related problems such as failure. And then there's also rigid problem-solving behavior. This also applies to adults. And then sometimes there can be parents who are over-controlling, and are very authoritarian in terms of parental styles. And then there's often a lack of tolerance by parents or caregivers for developmental change, role changes, and then parental loss through divorce or parental death. We've also got a family history of psychopathology, including substance abuse, a family history of suicide. There's generally, literature indicates that between 17 to 55% of there's 17 to 55% of heritability for suicidal behavior, that's thoughts, plans, and attempts, and 20% for suicide. So if there's a family history with these kinds of figures, there are more children, adolescents more likely to engage in suicidal behavior. There's also poor perceived parental support and negative feelings about the family, forced sexual intercourse and physical violence by partners. Then there's alcohol abuse, mood disorder, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness, and then a friend or a peer suicidal ideation, as well as contact with police. So if there's some kind of criminal history there or exposure to police, then they're more likely. There's anger, low self-esteem, perceived stress, which we've spoken about, feeling, and also being a participant in or a victim of violent behavior, such as bullying. So all these also emerge as significant factors. So generally, suicidal behavior is viewed as an inappropriate method of communication or problem solving with poor coping and problem solving skills and rigid thinking. So people maybe who engage in that can't look at the other options or can't see the other options that are available to them, or solutions for whatever situation or problem that they find themselves in. And often it's seen as the only viable option by someone who's unable to see or generate alternative solutions to engage in help-seeking behavior for his or her problems. So generally, suicide occurs within the context of a triad of a threat of abandonment, threat or fear of abandonment, shame, injury, death, and then it equates to loss, whether it's a sense of a loss, a real loss, or a threat of a loss, and then also a loss of self-esteem, what we think about ourselves, how we feel about ourselves. So it's a coping strategy within the context of vulnerability, possible recurrent negative life events that expose or evoke the experience of life as being meaningless or situations as hopeless. And then when that happens, suicide seems to be a very attractive option and alternative to a life what people may perceive as full of misery and suffering. And then when we're looking at vulnerability, we're looking at social adversity combined with vulnerability, poverty, negative life events, which all then add up to making the person engage in suicidal behavior. So when we look at risk factors, male gender for completed suicide, female gender for suicide attempts, more women make attempts, 4 times as many, than more males end up successfully killing themselves or dying by suicide. So we've spoken about this, the younger age for suicide attempts. There's a past history of suicidal behavior, including suicide attempts, presence of a mood disorder, presence of other psychiatric disorders, diagnosis of terminal illness, history of abuse, parental divorce, parental psychopathology, family history of suicidal behavior, acute and chronic stresses, as well as feelings of hopelessness, impulse control, etc. The other thing I want to talk about is suicide contagion. The idea that suicide behavior of one person may be imitated by others has received considerable attention, and often people call it suicide contagion, and some others call it suicide clusters. Whenever there's a suicide in a school or somewhere, suicide prevention and intervention policies are often guided or influenced by the assumption that imitation plays a causal role in suicidal behavior amongst young people. We've heard that in Mr. Sen's case, the last case that you presented. And what happens here in terms of risk factors for clusters would be more males, more young people, also people with a family history of suicide or alcohol abuse, and then personal history, unstable family home environment, poor educational experience, etc. Not going to dwell too long on that, but what I want to say is that we've got, I'll give you an example of a cluster. And a cluster was one which the suicide of the designer Kate Spade, who makes the most beautiful happy handbags, followed by that of celebrity chef Anthony Bourdain, both within 5th and 8th of June in 2018. And yeah, that could be considered to be a cluster. And people look for explanations as to why these things happen. And the exposure to suicide behavior of others may result in an exacerbation of already existing psychiatric disturbances. So people may engage in imitative behavior, and this could be due to genetics in terms of depression, alcoholism, etc. But the other thing that people could look at is that people may go and associate with people who are similar to them, and it's called associative relating or homophily, where people who are vulnerable experience suicidal symptoms in response to shared severe life stresses such as non-suicide deaths, relationship loss, and failure, which may end up activating suicidal behavior. So people may associate with others who share these risk factors, and then when something happens, they associate with that person, identify with that person, and then engage in suicidality. The role of media is also an important one when they publicize suicides, because it kind of makes it seem very, when it's extensive, when it's somebody who's glamorous and whose death is reported upon in detail. Generally, that kind of sets off a media frenzy. Just in terms of management, it is very much, as we've heard, a sad reality. Suicide is multi-layered and a multidisciplinary approach is required. There's no one size fits all. So what may work for one person may not work for another. We need to identify individuals who are at risk and encourage them to seek help and help them identify sources of support. People will engage in things like social withdrawal. This would be identifiers, feel like they're a burden. There could be cries for help, so they may engage in picking fights, binge drinking. But the answer is also early identification of mental disorders, because mental illness is a reality. Things like mood disorders, schizophrenia, and then also engaging in intervention. A lot of people don't like to talk about psychotropic medication. They feel it's all in the mind and you can control it. But if it's a neurochemical and an imbalance in the endocrine systems or in your chemicals, it's like having diabetes. It's not going to change unless you take medication and engage in lifestyle changes. So there's also psychotherapy, family intervention, and people must have open and active discussions on suicidality. As Mrs. Sen has said, people are afraid to ask someone if they have suicidal thoughts or plans or attempts or made attempts, because they're afraid that it may trigger things off. And then suicidal individuals, I find in my experience, are often very happy or relieved at least that somebody is asking them about their feelings without being judgmental. And the other thing is, it's also important to engage for religious leaders. This thing needs to come into the conversational space. A long time ago, people were being buried if they committed suicide with stakes in their heart in Britain. Some years ago, in 1800s, wasn't so far away, early 1900s, staked through the heart, buried at a crossroads. If they killed, they wouldn't be put into consecrated grounds. Some religions still do that, but I think that it's important people are now recognizing. And then also, if somebody is experiencing a loss of faith or a crisis, don't believe in God and things like that, it's also nice to have a friendly priest or a pastor who can understand, irrespective of what religion you are in, who understands and is willing to engage in these issues without being judgmental. As we said, social support from school, especially teachers and family, is very important in reducing. And then access to mental health services, counselors at schools and universities. In the old days, when I was, started off in my profession, there were lots of school counselors who would engage in exactly this kind of work, substance abuse, etc. But unfortunately, the Department of Education did away with them. So now people have to go and seek help on their own, though there are opportunities available, certainly at university level. And then also addressing parental and family mental health. There's a lot of stress now, especially with COVID. It's exacerbated our already bad financial situations, unemployment, anxiety. And often when people went into lockdown, a lot of the existing problems were magnified because you were locked up literally in a little house or a flat or wherever with a family that you were maybe not having a good experience with, or a partner you're not having a good husband, spouse, whatever, not having a good experience with. And a lot of the problems are being magnified by proximity due to lockdown. Then increasing family connectedness is also an important thing in suicide prevention. Open family communication and togetherness, even, for example, just sitting down for a meal together. And then people must also learn to emotionally be self-aware in terms of what their feelings are, and also knowing that you cannot chronically feel down, miserable, unhappy. There are times where you do feel happy. There are times that you do feel sad, and you must learn to regulate those emotions and the act you engage in between the emotions and the act. So you need to pause between feeling something and acting on it. So if you feel I want to go kill yourself, you need to distract yourself, pause, think about something, and then decide what happens. Also develop good coping skills to identify the ability to be able to resolve problems, and to also avoid maladaptive coping, things like substance abuse or binge eating, etc. People must also learn to develop skills of hardiness. Life is not fair. And I think if people sit and expect everything good to happen to them because they may be exposed to social media where people are posting things that are all wonderful and glamorous about their lives, then it's going to set up unhappiness and false expectations in people. Bad things will happen to people, even to good people, and good things will happen to bad people. And I think that's a sad reality also. So those things should be taken with a pinch of salt. People are not going to post bad things about them on social media, Instagram, or wherever. We must also develop resilience and need to develop children who can get up, stand up, fall down, still get up and get going. So resilience is the ability to adapt well in the face of adversity, or the ability to recover quickly from difficult conditions. It's getting up after being knocked down. And then also you need to be careful who you share things with, because you can't go and discuss and spill all your emotional feelings onto people and then find it discussed by friends, family, posted somewhere. So you need to identify a trusted individual also to share your feelings with and life with. And also, generally, I find a lot of people get bogged down with negativity. And I think we all have these kinds of people in our lives where they're always talking about sad and bad things without actually talking about the good things. So you also not to say have happy, cheery people around you all the time, but have a balanced kind of social network where you can talk to people about the bad things as well as the good and the happy things. Also look for humor. We tend to underestimate even faking humor. They have all these laughing groups in India where people go and elsewhere, where people go, get into a circle and just laugh. And just faking it gets the endorphins going and people tend to feel a little bit better. And then finally, now talk about if somebody has died, a family member or friend has demised through suicide, it's often good to offer the survivor support because there's a lot of self-blame, shame, etc. We also need to refer to organizations such as Survivors of Loved Ones, and then we've spoken about the various community organizations. And then most government hospitals have psychologists and psychiatrists, especially in urban areas. They're limited, but they're there. And then there's a lot of online resources such as the Psychological Society of South Africa, American Psychological Association, American Psychiatric Association. And then if people are experiencing stress, there's also there are lots of online sites. There's one called verywellmind.com. And people also need to practice mindfulness, be in the moment. As I've said, be physically active, play a sport, take up a sport, walk, meditate. And also, most importantly, learn to reward yourself for something well done and learn to value yourself. If you don't value yourself, nobody else is going to. Affirmation can't come from the outside all the time. I'm going to stop now, but I thank you for listening and I welcome any feedback and comments both here and afterwards. So more than welcome to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vadwa. That was very informative and in-depth. I would like to move over as we go to our question and answer session with the panel. I would like to further introduce our third speaker, Mrs. Naidu, who will be taking us through to the exercise in relaxation. Mrs. Ketamine Naidu is a clinical psychologist based in Musgrave, Durban in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. She is currently at the end stages of her PhD studies in psychology, focusing on the impact of debt and stress on mental health of workers of Department of Health. She has a vast experience as a psychologist, having working in the employee assistance sector of the Department of Health in KwaZulu-Natal, where she left at the level of Deputy Director EAP. She is currently in private practice as a clinical psychologist. She is a mother of 2 teenage girls.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hi, thank you so much for introducing me. At the outset, I'd like to thank Mrs. Dawn Colvin-Willinga for inviting me to be a part of this very interesting but essential topic, because I think, as our speakers have said, that suicide is something that is quite prominent, and now with all the unnatural events that are happening, including a lot of personal issues. I see on your chat group, people have already touched on certain things. People are going through a lot of financial crises, the lockdown, coping with it. There's lots of family issues. Also, the children are really battling to deal with the new normal. Studying online is really not easy, and they are battling to cope. They're too shy, they're too embarrassed to ask for help. And there's a lot of expectations, both on the family as well as on children, and it can lead to suicidal behavior. So, you know, as Dr. Bauda had mentioned, and Ms. Hussein as well, that, suicidal thoughts, it's something that I think many people sometimes do contemplate because of all the issues and the crises that they are feeling. And I just want to tell our viewers and our audience that it's okay not to feel okay at times, because life has become very overwhelming. But the key is that we need to start managing our thoughts, you know, and the way we think. I think our earlier speakers have mentioned on this, that the way we think, how we perceive ourselves is quite important, because I saw on one of the chat that the sense of control, and yes, it's quite important because we all sometimes feel that we're losing control. When COVID first hit, we were like so flabbergasted by what happened, and we were feeling so overwhelmed and we're feeling out of control. But, it's important to just take a step back and to realize that we're human. As Dr. Bauder says, good things are going to happen to bad people and vice versa. And, it's not to label any of us, and it's to realize that we're human and we're going to go through many emotions. Life is it's not a smooth sailing plane. It's a plane between happiness and sadness. But how do we stop our thoughts from becoming so hopeless and so helpless? We need to catch our thoughts and become very mindful, because that is when we feel that we have no way out, we have no sense of control within our environment, within our homes. And that's when people resort to contemplating suicide. Contemplation of suicide, if I had to ask everybody, there would be at least 5 or 6 people out of 10 who would have thought, oh my God, I just want to roll up and die. Or, I can't handle this right now. And what would it be like if I'm not here? That is the start of how suicidal thoughts actually start happening. And so we need to pause, as Dr. Bauder's mentioned, and we need to take a step back, and we need to tell ourselves that, that it's okay, that it can get better. So I just wanted to share a few tips in terms of coping before I do the relaxation, and then I'm sure there would be panel discussions. But in terms of our thoughts, as I said, we need to catch our thoughts. We need to be mindful of what we think. And being positive, let me tell you, is very difficult, even sometimes on a good day, because, it also can be very draining and tiring for somebody who is slipping into depression or feeling out of control. So the first step is to realize that worry is only a rocking chair. When you worry, you're going over it and over it in your head, and you're going nowhere slowly, as I would tell my patients. So rather, what's the point of worrying? And then I just want to give you some few tips. We always ask, what if only I could have. We have lots of regrets, and that would lead us to eventually sometimes ending our lives, because what if this happens? Now, there is no what if. So the first step is to stop asking ourselves what if. Try and refrain from what if, could have, and should have. And, I think there's a lot of pop psychology that's going around, and there's a lot of people, even on the internet, that talk about affirmations. Affirmations are so profound, and that can actually get you going, because when you get up in the morning and, you're looking at only your 4 walls, you've got only your family, it can become very overwhelming. But if you're going to say, I'm going to have a great day, if you say that I'm feeling blessed, or, I can do this, even things as though it's not going right, but I can do it, then you start to shift the way you think. So your thinking is most important, because the way you think, that's the way you're going to act, and that's the way you're going to feel. So, and if you become totally negative, I can't, and only if you're seeing all the negative things, because, and the reality is we are seeing it around us. Because as we were chatting earlier, with COVID, there's a lot of death and dying. And that too can lead to a lot of suicidal behavior. Because, instead of COVID taking me, I'd rather just end this misery, or I can't handle losing so many family members right now. And, you're feeling alone and lost and helpless. So when those thoughts start to happen, it's very easy to spiral out of control. And it's very easy for us to become so negative in our thinking. So we need to catch our thoughts, and we can actually try and shift our thinking and realize that, it's okay. How many of us actually do smile, even though there's so much of death, destruction around us? Smiling is free. But, and it takes, just the smiling actually lifts your mood. But people don't smile. They are worrying all the time. So like I said, remember my rocking chair, there's no point in worrying. There's no what if. And the reality is, give yourself time to think about it. But don't think about it the entire day. because we've got so many things that's happening. And, give yourself at least 5, 10, 15, up to half an hour to contemplate everything that's going wrong, and write it down. What is it that I can't control right now? And, I think Dawn is going to share the Serenity Prayer with you. We need to realize that there are things that we won't be able to control. Some things are out of our control, and that's okay. But we need to take a step back and to look at what is it that we can control? What is it that we need to start doing now for ourselves? Because certain things are going to fall into place, like COVID. It's going to fall into place. We're going to have to do what we need to do. There's a lot of things that we can do, take our safety measures, our precautions, but the rest we'll have to let it be. We've got to be very mindful of what we do, where we go, but we also need to start taking control of the things that we can. Start developing a routine for yourself. Everybody says they feel all over the place since COVID has happened, families in our face, etc. So get into a routine. Get back into a routine. Start the day with love. It's not easy. There's so many things happening, but smile. Look into the mirror and say, hey, beautiful, go have a lovely day. That's quite important, because if you don't feel good about yourself, then it's easy to just let the negativity happen. And you are going to get not great news. Like some people have picked up that there's a lot of, even with this COVID or with a lot of financial issues that people are facing right now, because lots of people have lost their jobs. That's a reality in the entertainment industry, etc. So, but if you only see bills, then that's all you're going to get. But if you start to put mechanisms in place, the things that you can't control, realize that there's certain things that you can do, and start working on the things that you can, then that's going to actually shift your thinking so that you don't feel so helpless. You don't feel so hopeless. Because when those type of profound feelings happen, you feel depressed. I can't do it. I can't get out of bed. I can't face another day. That's when suicidal thoughts happen. And self-harm, somebody's raised the question about self-harm. Self-harm, it's not necessary that you will commit suicide. Sometimes self-harm is actually a plea for help, a cry for help. Or sometimes self-harm could be that you can't control what's happening outside, but you don't have healthier coping mechanisms. And what happens is that you take out your frustrations on yourself because you feel nobody's listening. So because you can't act out, and often I find it in practice with the kids. I'm seeing a lot of children in practice where the 15, 16, 13-year-olds are actually coming in because they're cutting themselves or they're scratching themselves badly, or because they can't control what's happening. The studying method is not the greatest. There's less contact with their friends. They can't socialize. Online teaching seems to be a great problem. And what they do is, because they can't control it, they don't want to speak out. They're too afraid to speak out. They're too embarrassed or too shy because people will think, what's wrong with them? Or, and what they do is they internalize their anger. They internalize their frustrations and they start to self-harm. So self-harm can actually lead to suicidal behavior because sometimes eventually they're going to cut the wrong vein. Or eventually they're going to take too much of medication or too much of tablets that's going to dull the pain and they're not going to get up. So, we need to try and catch these behaviors, and conversations is so important. Dr. Vauda, has mentioned interconnectedness with family and friends. Now, guys, we got social media now. So, you're really not alone. You can link up with your WhatsApp or your Instagram. You can talk to your family and friends. Yes, we can't go visiting. Yes, we can't really have parties per se, but we need to start connecting with our families and friends. We need to start talking about what's concerning us, what's worrying us, so that we can catch ourselves, so that when we see that we're slipping, then some of us, could see that somebody is really not feeling great. They're constantly talking the same line of talk, like, I can't do this. Life would be better if I'm not here. And, and then we can actually catch that person and try and offer them help, so, and one of the coping skills is that, like I said, there's no what if, there's no could have, there's no should have. People need to develop good affirmations, or they need to just say, this will pass. And then the next rule that I really like to share, because how suicidal behavior happens is when we're constantly ruminating over the negative events. So after 7, you don't even give yourselves a break because you can't do anything about it. And we don't apply the Serenity Prayer. And even if you don't believe in God, it's fine. You just can say that, leave out God and to say, help me to accept the things I can't control. But after 7, we should try not to think about negative things. Also, we listen to the news, we listen to the TV, and you're looking at all the stats and you're looking at what's going on, and it's quite depressing. So catch the news in the day, catch it up the next day. I mean, it's still going to be there. Nothing too drastic is going to change, but rather put on a movie, find a good distraction, listen to some nice soothing music. But, your problems are going to be there tomorrow. So it's okay if you give it a break. And after 7, you just find some good distraction, take some me time for yourself. If you are mothers, if you are parents, or you have responsibilities, sort out your responsibilities. And in terms of looking at, and then try and have a good rest. So it's quite important to find good coping mechanisms. And after 7, try and instill happy thoughts. So, Ms. Fusa, I don't know whether I need to do the relaxation now, or do you want to take questions and then do it at the end?
Yes, for now, let's take a few questions. Let's do the questions with the panel. We'll have few questions, and then after we'll have the exercise.
Okay. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, let us move over to our question session with the panel. I will then direct the first question to Dr. Vadua. Dr. Vadua, how can I help someone who's feeling suicidal?
Okay, I think the important thing is to be there for them, to be helpful to them, to be aware that they are feeling the way they are feeling, and let them know that they're not alone, that there's some kind of social support. Somebody here has mentioned the role, the importance of highlighting social support. And often people can't do it on their own. They need a little bit of help and guidance, to being able to listen to them, to acknowledge their feelings in a very non-judgmental kind of a way. And then the more you open up, the more people will tell you about things that happen to you, I'm sorry, I need to open. Yes, so I think that that's an important aspect that is being available, and also helping them identify sources of intervention or support, be it professional, personal, spiritual, whatever it is. If it's your friend, this is what you know them, and this is what you need to help them access. So I think that's also quite important. Going with them, maybe if they're afraid to go and see a psychologist or a counselor, going with them, helping them, giving them the number of a helpline, etc. Because people often don't reach out and do it for themselves. They need just a little gentle push. And I think those kinds of things that are important. And just talking about them. The other thing is also not to get too, sometimes when you get involved, you can sometimes get too involved. And because you know the person too well, sometimes you tend to lose objectivity. So it's also important not to lose your objectivity in that scenario, and not feel that you are the only person that they can depend on or rely on. And if you don't do anything, they will go and kill themselves. So I think it's also important to know what your role is and how far your role can extend, because you are also a person who's living in the world and experiencing challenges, etc. So you have your own issues, and sometimes it's hectic to take on somebody else's issues too. So there should be a balance between caring and support, and also looking after yourself. I don't know if that answers the question.
It completely does. It definitely does. Thank you so much, Dr. Fadwa. I will then direct the next question to Mrs. Naidu. What won't help someone who is feeling suicidal? Mrs. Naidu, are you with us?
Sorry, my video was muted. Okay,
Okay.
thank you so much. All right, what won't help is there's some do's and don'ts, you know. You don't try and find a solution for them. Don't think that it's, you know, it's try and cheer them up by saying, oh, snap out of it, pull yourself out of this. You know, try and do stay with them, try and just, you know, explore what they're feeling and, you know, try and get them to identify that, yes, they are feeling this way and try and get them some help. You know, don't disregard what they're saying. And you also need to just check their environment just to make sure that there's things that's not going to aid them, but just be supportive, you know, and just try and listen to them. That's the most important thing, and not to patronize them.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. I would further ask you another question. What is self-harm, and is there a link between self-harm and suicide?
Okay, as I said, self-harm is where somebody tries to harm themselves. Yes, there is a link between self-harm. Self-harm is a maladaptive coping strategy or a behavior. And where the person is mentally distressed, he does not know how to unleash the person's feelings or anger or disappointment, and they take it out, they internalize it, and they take it out on themselves. Like I did say, self-harm is where a common one is where they start cutting, or they pinch themselves, or they burn, or they will take a pen and it will dig it into the skin, etc.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. My last question to you would be, if I am suicidal, how can I help myself?
Okay, if you're suicidal, it's important to, firstly, like I said, try and catch our thoughts. But if you're feeling suicidal, then you already, it's unable to get out of it. So sometimes reach out, talk to a friend. Sometimes it's important to, you know, you've got a doctor. Many people go to the GP because mental health is a lot of stigma around it. So, you know, you can perhaps just schedule an appointment with your doctor and talk to the doctor or your nearest clinic or or a friend. Also at school, it's important to reach out, talk to a teacher. So yeah. It's important to reach out. Sometimes, I mean, there's lots of flashings, posters, like the lifeline numbers, you know, if you do have it, then sometimes it's important just to contemplate calling.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. It looks as if all of my questions are directed to you. I'm sorry about that. You're going to be on the spotlight.
Oh, okay.
Yes. What is a crisis plan, Mrs. Naidu?
Crisis plan is where, you know, when you're feeling that things are spiraling out of control, what is it that you need to do immediately? You know, it's to make sure that somebody's safe, you know, or to look at what is it their physical needs or their safety needs or their immediate needs to try and help somebody. With a suicide person, you know, in terms of, well, you're feeling suicidal, so you would possibly, you know, try and reach out. Often they would reach out to a friend or it's more like in terms of a crisis plan for somebody who is identified, somebody who's talking, you know, they would be continuously saying that I don't feel like I'm needed to be here, etc. So, you know, it's to try and make that person feel safe, try and support that person, to try and understand their feelings, you know, just to be there with them and to make them, you know, realize that you need to get help. So, you know, looking at what else can help you, whether you reach out to, like I said, to your GP or go for help. For the person who is possibly suicidal and not profoundly hopeless and helpless, the person can identify the triggers. They can track their thoughts. They need to look at, my thinking is becoming too negative now. All I'm doing is becoming negative. So try and look at how do I feel when I think about these things? And, you can actually try and stay away from those thoughts. So, the what if that I mentioned, then we need to try and catch ourselves, and there's no what if, but it's important to try and reach out for help. You can, apply the Serenity Prayer, where, the things that I can't control, make a list of what you can't control. And if you can't do anything about it, then I often say then those things you just need to let it be, or you can write it, tear it, and burn it. You need to try and start to let it go. You need to accept that you can't do anything right now. And what you can, then start making an action plan as to what is it that you need to do to make yourself feel a little bit better. And like we said, the most simplest thing is that in crisis, instead of panicking, the fight or flight mode, sometimes we just need to catch our breath, take a deep breath. And we need to now, try and smile. Yes, it's not easy to smile in a stressful situation, but, just to take a sigh of relief and to say, okay, hang on, I can do this. Take a step back, and look at your own internal resources. But the main thing is to reach out for help. So get support, because you already identified a person that a go-to person when you're feeling down that you will go and speak to. Also, something to be mindful of is that when you're so negative, rather to have more healthier coping mechanisms, because when you're in crisis, then we want to reach out for the alcohol, or the drugs, because that will make the pain go away. It's going to numb my feelings. So rather try and stay away from those type of things, because alcohol, instead of making an upper, yes, 1 tequila, 2 tequila, but after the third or fourth one, it becomes a depressant. And that can exacerbate your suicidal ideations.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. That was quite a good response to our question. I would like us to proceed and take a few questions from the floor before we move to our relaxation exercise. Are you fine with that, Mrs. Naidu?
Yes.
That we proceed to the questions on the platform and then we come back to the exercise?
Yes.
Sorry,
sure.
if I could just step in. Sorry, Ms. Foos there. I'm really sorry. I see so many lovely, interesting questions here that I feel are compelled to answer, and so I'm jumping in. Someone asked if there was going into therapy is an act of resilience. I think it's an act. It takes tremendous courage to go and engage in therapy, because therapy is hard work. And often it makes you face things that you may not be ready to. So I think that, I think that it's definitely an act of self-love and self-care, and definitely an act of resilience. You're trying to make your life better for yourself, having acknowledged that there are problems. And I think that's the biggest thing that one can do for oneself. Say that there's an issue that I cannot deal with myself, and I'm investing in myself to go forward with whatever my issues are, as painful as they may be, to resolve them. I'm making a commitment to myself. And I think that's the most important commitment you can make. The other question was asked, there were two questions: incidents of suicidality amongst Black males, and is there literature on suicide and depression in Black men ages 18 to 40? And I think that's, it's research is being done, but it's being done in little corners around the country. So you may come across some research I do a lot of research in this area, but I haven't done amongst Black men. I was one of the first people that did it amongst Black women. And when I first started off the profession, it was suicide, parasuicide, suicidal behavior was just something you saw amongst, if we're talking races and ethnicity now, amongst Indians and amongst white South Africans. We never saw it amongst Blacks. And then suddenly the picture changed and you found a lot of women engaging in this, but the men you never saw because the men ended up killing themselves. So the way to do this is to get on, but that's also behind times, the national injury mortality surveillance systems, but it's really old. They don't give you low results. So you got to sift out this information. And if anyone's interested in this area of research, I think it's an amazing area to get involved in, to look at the mortuary data, because that's the only way you're going to know. Then there was somebody who also asked about ketamine therapy. Now, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a medical doctor, but I feel that it's an anesthetic, and there are other medications that are available that one needs to try before jumping in straight through to ketamine therapy. So there's no reason why mood stabilizers shouldn't be, psychotropic medication like mood stabilizers shouldn't be engaged in. I'm sure there's some body of research somewhere that suggests ketamine therapy works, but if there are other methods available, or safer methods of medication, etc., may be available, it's worth trying those first before jumping in. And then somebody's also asked, I think it was Lenora, about traditional healers and training in mental health. I'm really relieved to say that a lot of our religions, I work at King Edward Hospital, and you'll find that a lot of people go and consult traditional healers of any form. And the very good traditional healers are the people who know that this is not something that can be dealt with by yourself. You need to go and seek professional help. But we need to, somebody also said that panelists are behind because we're talking about committing suicide. It's not committing suicide, it's just terminology. It's the act of dying by suicide. I think it takes a lot of courage to go and kill yourself. I don't think it's somebody who doesn't have courage. I think it's really, quite an intensive process to engage in. And I think that the healers, they are changing. They are younger people that are coming into the profession who are not as judgmental, who don't hold rigidly to the fact that it's a sin that you're committing, who acknowledge that there's mental illness. But there's always room to engage with anybody on promotion of mental health. And I think that that's also a good thing to engage in as part of community outreach, etc., provided that the people there are willing to engage with you. Because some don't want you on their turf. They feel you're going to steal their patients, or you're going to, encourage these kinds of things amongst the congregations. But I think the more open-minded ones are happy to have their people engage, their congregants engage in these discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vadwa. Thank you so much for jumping in and attending some of the questions that were being asked by the floor on our group chat. I would like to proceed further and ask these questions. There's one that I see and very interesting. It is saying, importantly, is there any literature of suicide and depression focusing specifically on Black men, particularly the age groups, which is between 18 and 40?
I think I spoke about it and said that it has to be teased out. There are scale studies being done, but one has to go and look for them. So I think that, as I said, it's a good topic, that and the incidence question. It's a good topic if somebody is interested in researching it. Or as far as I know, Joe et al. Conducted, but that was way back, I think in 2006, if I'm not mistaken. They did a study, but the study had some methodological challenges in it because it only looked at certain percentages amongst the different groups. So maybe more recent literature is available, but I haven't come across anything much.
Thank you with that response, Dr. Vadwa. I have another interesting one, which says, it is difficult to control our thinking. It's so repetitive in our heads. Any tips for that?
Thank you. I think I've covered some of the tips in my opening. And so like I said, worrying is a rocking chair. the negative thoughts will flow. You have to find good distraction. And, we can't constantly be focusing on what's not right. Let's try and focus on what is right with the world, because we can find so many things that's all wrong. But let's look at what is right, and that will shift your thinking. Trying to smile, laughter therapy distracts somebody from being totally negative. There's no what if. An assumption. The greatest thing is assumption, because you assume that somebody is thinking something. So rather ask it, because that's how the anxiety and the depression starts in, which then leads to suicide. So if you are uncertain about something, ask. It doesn't matter if you're going to make a fool of yourself, or you think that the person will think it's a silly question to ask, or it's that feeling is not warranted. Rather share it, ask, and try and stick to some affirmations, and try and find some positive, start enjoying collateral beauty. Then it will help to also stop the negative thinking, to start appreciating the beauty around you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Naidu. I have a follow-up question for you. Can overthinking lead to suicide?
Yes, it can. Yes. Because all those dark thoughts, the negative thoughts, would then eventually could lead to suicide, where somebody would have a plan, an intention, because I can't do this anymore. There's no way out. So then they would make a method and a plan of how they're going to execute themselves. Just to look at some of the one of the questions. So parasuicide is where they attempt it, but try and attempt it, but more for a cry for help, where I'm not doing so great, I can't handle this now. And normally it's the self-harm that is our parasuicides, where they will cut or take tablets, but not a hell of a lot, so that, their lives would come to an end. So there's a difference between parasuicide and suicide. Suicide is the act of going through with whichever intention it is.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu, with that response and even attending to that question. It was going to be a coincidence, because I was going to follow up with that question that you just answered right now. Thank you so much. I'm also seeing another one that is very interesting. It is saying, every night before I sleep, I always think about death. It happens automatically. I end up thinking about, what if I don't wake up the next day? I don't know what could be the cause or what it means. What can be the take or your take to this question?
Okay, so I'll add, and then I don't know whether Dr. Bauda or anybody else wants to add. You see, like I said, after 7, it's important for us to train the mind. It's very easy to follow the negative thoughts and the what if. So if anything you take away from today, there is no what if anymore, because what if is not going to happen. It's going to only happen if you will it to happen. So become more mindful of your thoughts and refrain from what if. So we'd often try and tell our patients that maybe they must, go pick up a stone. If some people read The Secret, the gratitude rock. So rather, before you go to bed, rather write 3 things for me which you are grateful for. That will shift the thinking. And when you go to what if, you need to say no. Whatever's that what if, it didn't happen. So you need to write it, you can burn it, you can tear it, and you need to try and let it go. Or I often tell my patients to think of the Frozen song, Let It Go. So when you're thinking of what if I don't get up in the morning, you need to trust, you need to have faith. And I think Dr. Bauda has also touched on spirituality. Many of us do pray. So if you say you do pray, then where is the what if you have no faith? So rather, let's reinforce our faith, say our prayers before bedtime, find a healthy routine, find good distraction, listen to music, watch a lovely movie, and have a nice hot shower. Then you can easily fall into bed and refrain the thoughts. So if you can't think of anything, then my relaxation is going to be one of the tools you're going to use. Or you can think of the beach or the sea or the park. It's just boring and mundane, but it moves away from what if. So we have the power to control our thinking. We just need to train the monkey mind.
Thank you so much.
Can I just quickly add on there? I fully agree with the what if thoughts. And coming back to the question, a lot of people have a fear of death. And maybe that could be the case. A very popular tool is by journaling, writing down about the fears and where does this fear stem from, what exactly triggers this fear, and things like that. So yeah, journaling is definitely a tool. And with the what if thoughts, I always tell the people, my clients, that what if you win the lotto? Flip the script, flip your what if thoughts. What if I win the lotto? What if the sun starts to shine? You know, yeah. And in terms of controlling those thoughts, I know people that suffer with severe depression struggle to control those thoughts. One of the tools I help my clients use is by writing down those questions, answering them. Because once you answer those questions, they stop multiplying. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hussein. That was very accurate and informative. And I would like to add by saying that it is very important to also protect ourselves. We need to be very cautious of our thoughts and protect ourselves by controlling what we think at times, as much as it is not easy. But thank you so much. I'm not sure if Dr. Vadra wanted to say something or add to what has been put on the table.
Yeah, I'm very encouraged by this discussion. And I think that somebody has already suggested that they're going to be engaging in research. So amongst, especially Black males and things like that. So I'm very encouraged by the questions, because I think that the questions show in-depth thinking, critical thinking, questioning. And I'm very hopeful that we can come to grips with this whole business, because the open discussion is the important thing. Once you have an open discussion, avenues, doors open, people can talk openly, people can seek help, and it can go through to the various levels, individual, family, religion, society. And I think that just makes it a less of a taboo topic, and it creates greater mental health awareness, not just of suicide, but of mental health generally. So I'm really optimistic about what has come out of this presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Vadra, with that response. I would like us to go back to Mrs. Naidu and let us give her the platform so that she can take us through to the relaxation exercise. Mrs. Naidu, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Before I take you to the relaxation, stemming from what Ms. Hussein says, remember there's two realities, or there's two certainties in life. One is you're going to have to pay your taxes, and one is the certainty that you are going to die. The question is, why should you wonder when are you going to die? What if you never wake up? Well, like she said, the flip side is you're going to get up 9 out of 10 times, and only God knows when is your time. So let's not waste time thinking about things you can't control. Rather, try and focus on the things that you can. And you need to pray for guidance and the wisdom to know the difference. So having said that, I'd like to take you through progressive muscle relaxation, which often helps. And, you don't have to do the entire relaxation, but once you get used to the deep breathing, and then you will basically, even if you are going for an interview or if you are stressed out, nobody is going to see you crunching your hands under your desk if you're not happy about something, but just breathing and letting it out, or we often raise our shoulders and we let it go. So, nobody's going to really know what you are doing, but it is just mechanisms in which you can relax the muscles, because once you start to relax the mind and the muscles, then you can think more clearly. Then you can make more informed decisions. So I'm going to give you the instructions. Basically, it is deep breathing. So when you breathe in, And when you breathe out, I want you to say, I'm calm and relaxed. That's the key words we're going to use in our mind. Then, we often get angry and upset. So you clench your fists and then you open your fingers and you let it out. Then when we're feeling helpless or hopeless, then, I want us to clench our fists and bring it up to our chest, because this is when you feel so trapped, you can't breathe. And then you breathe out and you let it go and you let your hands sit comfortably on your lap. With your face, we often get headaches. So I want you to raise your eyebrows, your eyes will be closed, and then slowly relax it so that, your facial muscles become more relaxed. Because when your body's tense, then we start to feel the pain or the negative thoughts just amplifies. Then when you're so angry, I want you to clench your fist, clench your teeth and close your eyes shut and then release it. Then, like I said, they often say the whole world's in your shoulders. Raise your shoulders and slowly drop it, and you'll find that nice relaxation in the back and neck. Lastly, if you are sitting down, you can just stretch your feet out, point your toes towards the ground, and then just breathe out and relax. So are we ready with the instructions? Can I proceed? Okay, I'm going to take the silence because everybody's muted that we can proceed. So I want you all to just sit back. I want you to relax. We've spoken about quite a sensitive, quite a difficult topic, a harsh reality for many, but we need to find our happy space in this maddening world that we live in. So I want you to sit back. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to just focus on this journey that I am going to take you through. So let me see, I was supposed to get some music for you.
Have you found
Oh God.
the best app for audiobooks and podcasts?
Okay, that's not
If
working.
not, you need to check out anything right now. Imagine.
Okay, so I want you to sit back, relax, close your eyes, and I want you to take a deep breath in. Breathe in and slowly breathe out. Relax. And as you're breathing out, I want you to tell yourself that you're becoming calmer and relaxed. Once again, take a deep breath in. Breathe in all the stress, all the fear. And now slowly breathe out. Relax. And let your body become calm and relaxed. Once again, take a deep breath in. Breathe in all the stress, the anxiety, the tension. And now slowly breathe out, relax. And let your body become calm and relaxed. Now, as you're gently breathing in and out, I want you to shift your attention to your hands. I want you to clench your fists as tight as possible. Feel the tension, feel the anger. And now slowly breathe out. Open your fingers and let your hands become calm and relaxed. Once again, clench your fists. Feel the irritation, feel the frustrations. And now slowly breathe out, relax, and let your hands become calm and relaxed. Now I want you to clench your fists and bring it up towards your chest. As you're doing that, take a deep breath in. And now slowly breathe out, relax, open your hands and drop your hands to your lap. And tell yourself that you're becoming calm and relaxed. Once again, clench your fists, bring it up towards your chest. Feel the tenseness, feel the anxiety, feel the helplessness. And now slowly breathe out, relax, drop your hands and let it sit comfortably on your lap. Now I want you to move your attention to your face. I want you to raise your eyebrows, feel the tension in your forehead. This is how you feel when you get these nasty headaches from overthinking. Now slowly relax your facial muscles and breathe out and tell yourself that you're safe, calm, and relaxed. Now you want to shut out all thoughts, all the happenings around you. I want you to close your eyes tight, bite your teeth. And now slowly relax. Let go of all the stress and the tension and let your facial muscles become calm and relaxed. Now I want you to move your attention to your shoulders. I want you to raise your shoulders. Feel the tension in your neck and your back. And now slowly breathe out, relax, and let your upper body become lighter, calmer, and relaxed. Once again, Raise your shoulders. Feel the tension in your neck and your back. The whole world's in your shoulders. Now slowly breathe out. Let it go. And tell yourself that you're safe, calm, and relaxed. Now I want you to take a deep breath in. Breathe in all the stress, all the fear, all the anxiety. And now slowly breathe out. Relax. And let your upper body become lighter, calmer, and relaxed. Once again, take a deep breath in. Breathe in all and observe the tension in your body. And now slowly breathe out. Relax. And let your body become calm and relaxed. Lastly, let's move our attention to your feet. I want you to stretch your feet out. Point your toes towards the ground. And now slowly breathe out. Relax. And let your lower body become calm and relaxed. Once more, stretch your feet out, point your toes towards the ground, and now slowly breathe out, relax. And let your lower body become calm and relaxed. For the very last time, take a deep breath in. Breathe in all the stress, the anxiety, and now slowly breathe out, relax. And let your body become lighter, calmer, and relaxed. I want you to just keep your eyes closed. I want you to enjoy this new space that you've created. Here, you're a little bit more peaceful, you're a little bit more calmer, you're a little bit more relaxed. I want you to enjoy this feeling so that whenever you get stressed out, just by breathing in and out, you can come back into this calm state so that you can make informed decisions going further. When I count backwards from 3, you may open your eyes whenever you wish. 3, 2, 1. Okay, I don't know how you all are feeling. I can't see you. I hate doing the relaxation when I can't see you. So Ms. Hussain, thank you for joining this the relaxation mode. How do you feel right now? You are on mute.
Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu. Thank you, thank you. That was such a relaxing exercise. I soon became calm and felt that inner peace. It really worked wonders. I believe it also did the same to others. Thank you so much, Mrs. Naidu.
Pleasure. So just can I add that when you're going to bed, you've had a hectic day, you've had a busy day. This is not only for suicidal patients, it's for all of us. We just need to take the time to just breathe in, relax, calm down, and sometimes we can't sleep because the thoughts are racing through our mind. So this is a nice way to stop it by focusing on your breathing and all the different parts of your body. And then if you still can't relax, then if you like the beach or the park, as I said, then just take your mind to your favorite beach or favorite park. Imagine the sun on your back, imagine the scenery around, and that will relax the body and hopefully get you into a nice relaxed state to sleep so that you can be refreshed for the next morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Naidu. Before I let you go, Mrs. Naidu, there's a question that I just saw. I won't be able to sleep at night if I didn't ask this question that was posted on the chat. It says that, does having load of debts cause suicide? 2 of my family members lost their lives after being laden with heavy debts. Can someone really use suicide as a way of out of debt? I never heard a presenter mentioning this issue. Can you please tackle that one for us?
Thank you so much. Yes, that is very evident now, more so, but even before COVID. Financial debt, financial stress is something huge that people don't want to talk about. The family members or the breadwinners rather carry it alone, and they don't know how to say no. So instead of saying no, they sometimes feel the easiest way out is to end their lives in the hope that the insurance money or whatever would pay out to their family members, but that's often not the case, because when it's suicidal, then they don't pay out. So, it's a sad reality. That is why financial issues and struggles is something so important, and people need to seek help before, when they find even their finances are start to slip. So they need to reach out for help. Help is there. And there's various tools that even government, the National Credit Regulator, has put in place, because people who are not coping, who's lost jobs, they can actually benefit from debt counseling, put them into a payment plan. So, they can have a breathing space to then try and help themselves get a new job, or try and source additional income, or just to talk to their family members that they're not coping, and then re-strategize and budget. And that's the way we can actually prevent somebody from ending their life. That is sadly a reality. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Naidu. I'm not sure from the members of the panel whether there's a member that would like to say something before I hand over to Advocate Coleman Malinga to wrap up our session and give us closing remarks and vote of thanks. In that instance.
Okay, so I just wanted to add, sorry, that somebody's mentioned here how I wish I could stop taking anxiolytics, and I'm sure there's other people on antidepressants. Look, it's important to, some medication we can't rule out. When somebody is feeling so hopeless and helpless, or anxiety is so extreme, yes, we do use medication. So it goes in conjunction with psychotherapy. The most important thing is to reach out for help, because yes, eventually you can wean yourself off the medication if you start to identify the issues, the triggers, and work through it in therapy. And together with the psychiatrist or your GP, we actually then lessen the medication, give you tools and techniques to help you to cope, shift your thinking. And yes, then you can be successfully weaned off it. You don't have to be on it forever. So please don't be afraid if it is suggested that you need to take psychiatric medication just to help you initially to cope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Naidu, with that information. I would like to hand over to Advocate Dawn Coleman Malinga, who will sum up our seminar as well as our closing remarks and vote of thanks. Dr. Vadwa.
Yes, Dr. Ms. Muse, sorry. Do you want me to say something? No, I'm good. I think it's just amazing that this has happened. So yes, thank you for that. There were so many interesting questions and comments. Unfortunately, I couldn't answer all of them, or a lot of them. But I think the medication, what Dr. Naidu is saying is important. It's like a car. You conceive of yourself as a car that's moving without petrol. The medication, the therapy is petrol, and then you get moving. And then when you get where you are, you can stop. And generally with antidepressants, most doctors and all don't prescribe it for longer than 2 years. So, if you have a good discussion with your GP, you can manage it very well. It's not something you've got to keep on taking or being in psychotherapy to forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vadwa. Over to you, Advocate Coleman Malinga.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Fusi. Thank you very much to everyone for attending today. So on behalf of the Sexual Offences and Community Affairs Unit of the National Prosecuting Authority, I would like to extend a really warm and heartfelt vote of thanks to all of our presenters and panel members. Mrs. Hussein, thank you for your overview on suicide and for sharing Paula's story. I think for me, it's really heartbreaking to think that people so young could possibly contemplate ending their lives at 14 years, so short-lived and so young. We appreciate all the helpline numbers that you've shared today. And from the questions and answers that we saw during the webinar. A lot of people were talking about, feeling sad, having thoughts of death, and I feel that those helpline numbers that you furnished at the end of your presentation could be really useful. And I encourage people on the webinar today who are, thinking about suicide to reach out and seek telephonic support and assistance, or to reach out to one of the counseling groups and get support and assistance. I also saw that the university does offer assistance, reach out and seek that assistance. So yes, thank you for those numbers. Dr. Vadwa, thank you for contextualizing suicidal behavior within South Africa and for identifying, management plans and covering things like prevention, coping skills. And I think it's very important for people to realize that there are going to be good days and bad days, like you said. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your knowledge in dealing with patients who may be thinking and contemplating suicide. Mrs. Naidu, all of your wonderful experience, thank you for sharing that with us. But I think everyone, I saw the comments popping up after the relaxation exercise, and I think that was probably a highlight for everyone. I saw one lady saying, I really needed that, I have an interview tomorrow. So I think that's just what we all needed at the end of such an important topic. So thank you. I know that you're all very busy, and we appreciate the fact that you've given up your time to come and do these presentations for us today and share your experience and knowledge. And then to our wonderful facilitator and program director, Mrs. Fusi, thank you for keeping the webinar on track, for keeping things within their time frames, for keeping the program flowing in such a professional and seamless manner. We appreciate you. We appreciate the time that you've taken out of your busy schedule at the TCC to be with us today and to share your expertise with us for the webinar. To Mrs. Zondo, the Executive Director of Corporate Relations, we would like to thank you. Mrs. Langa, the Acting Director of University Relations, Mrs. Takuprasad, Mr. Dlamini, if he's with us today, I believe it's his birthday, so happy birthday, and the rest of the UKZN team who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes. Thank you for setting up this webinar, for forming this wonderful partnership with the National Prosecuting Authority, for hosting this webinar, for reaching out and inviting the UKZN community and networks, and for being so passionate about protecting the UKZN community and ensuring their safety. We look forward to working with you on this project going forward. And then just last but not least, to all the attendees who attended today, thank you. The questions were wonderful. I was, recording them as we were going through. I note that there are some questions that haven't been answered. We will discuss how we can attend to those. There's been some really great questions, and we appreciate the way that you've participated in this webinar. It's certainly a very interesting and much needed topic that needs to be discussed. There were very important messages that went out today. And I think one of the most important messages that went out today is that certainly there is help that is out there. In Mrs. Hussein's presentation, one of the things that really struck me is that the lady with the sign that said, suicide does not end the chance of life getting worse, but suicide eliminates the chance of it ever getting better. And that was really sort of profound and thought-provoking for me. So once again, thank you to UKZN. This was the first in a series of webinars that we've planned together to assist in safety and prevention for the UKZN community. Just to remind you that there is a second webinar planned for the 4th of October as Mrs. Langa indicated, between 2 and 3:30, which covers human trafficking. And we will explore the definition, the science, and how to vet the job offers. So that brings us to the conclusion of today's webinar. And if I have missed anyone, please forgive me. There is a whole team of people behind the scenes designing the adverts, working extremely hard. As you know, it takes a lot of planning and preparation, and I thank all of you. So thank you, goodbye, salagahle, tot ziens, and see you all soon.
Thank you so much, Advocate Malinga. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Thanks, Doctor.